today my presentation will be on treating COVID-19, vernacular ways of curing diseases. And the name of my presentation is The Return of the Legend, Anatoly Kashpirovsky's treatment of COVID-19. The tensions between Western scientific and alternative medicine become more palpable during the times of uncertainty. The COVID-19 pandemic has been a period of confusion, evoking mistrust of conventional medicine, which has been unable to fully protect people from the new disease. This has pushed some people to seek help and comfort elsewhere. In this presentation, I demonstrate how people from post-Soviet countries and post-Soviet immigrant communities resurrected their faith and trust in once forgotten Anatoly Kashpirovsky. Having conducted my digital fieldwork during the lockdown, I showcase how Kashpirovsky, a psychotherapist and a charismatic leader, once legendary in the USSR in 1980s and 90s, became popular again in 2020, in the moment of global economic, social, and political instability. Offering his health sessions online via YouTube channel, Anatoly Kashpirovsky claims to be using strictly scientific, although innovative, methods to treat COVID-19. However, the responses of his patients show that people tend to perceive him as a folk healer, a psychic, or a magician, more than a physician. Kashpirovsky also entertains conspiracy theories about the possible harm that American vaccines can do to the Russian people. On the other hand, here his audiences express gratefulness for addressing these important issues, relying on his professional training and experience in biomedicine. This presentation is a short version of my recent publication in the special issues on COVID-19 of Folklorica, a journal of Slavic, Eastern European, and Eurasian Folklore Association. In the fall of 2019, I just moved to New York City after finishing my master's program. And like many newcomers, I opted to settle in a place that would be affordable and at least remotely remind me of my home in Ukraine. I rented a room in Brooklyn, New York, and specifically in Brighton Beach, a neighborhood well known for its Ukrainian, Russian, Jewish, or more precisely post-Soviet community, and it is also known as Little Odessa. Banks, pharmacies, doctors, pet groomers, schools, and essentially any business in this area readily serves clients in Russian. At first, I was overwhelmed by a wave of this nostalgia. I felt as if I have traveled back in time, and even though it felt like a strange mix of this Soviet mentality and capitalism. Then came a cultural shock. Billboards were covered with the posters of upcoming concerts with once popular Russian singers like Lyubov Uspенskaya, Iryna Voloshyna, Shufutinsky, whose fame in Russia and other post-Soviet states faded away with an influx of newer and more popular performance. But it was striking that people were nostalgic for the artists and music that was popular in the 1990s, so around the time of their immigration to the United States. In fact, the longer I lived there, the more I noticed this nostalgia for the period in the Soviet history and how it was pronounced in other aspects of life in Brighton Beach. What amazed me even more was the number of advertisements for psychics, healers, and seers. Some offered predictions about one's love life and career, while others limited their expertise to divinations about obtaining a green card, like here. On one of the posters, I was specifically surprised to see a photo of Anatoly Kashpirovsky. Sorry. Once legendary Soviet healer who would gather people into the packed stadiums and cure individuals of a variety of diseases. In fact, his official website claims that he can treat over 500 different diseases. Kashpirovsky had disappeared from mainstream media over the past several decades after a peak of his popularity in the mid-1990s and had moved to the US. When I shared this information that I saw a poster of Kashpirovsky in Brighton Beach with my family in Ukraine, everybody was amazed. First of all, they didn't know that he was still alive because he was not young in the 90s, but now it was then 2019. And also that people believe him and come to his health session still. Also, a local weekly newspaper, Russlaia Reklama, Russian advertisement, published a lot on Anatoly Kashpirovsky. In one of the issues, I found a full page advertisement and about the sessions that he was offering twice a week in a local restaurant. And the ad claimed that for about $35, one could experience, quote, the greatest miracles of mankind, end quote, in his sessions. So in March 2020, during the lockdown, like many of us, I had a little bit more time to spend on the internet, and YouTube suggested me a video, probably based on a number of views in my area. And in this video, Anatoly Kashpirovsky claimed that he knew the recipe for curing COVID-19. In fact, he had it written down on a piece of paper in front of him, and he was offering to share this recipe with anyone who needed it. His contact information, along with his bank account information and PayPal was for donations, was repeatedly sent to the live chat by one of his assistants. In April 2020, he started going live on his YouTube channel more frequently, and a number of views was growing exponentially. So here on this video, we can see that there is more than 500,000 views. That was the moment I knew I wanted to concentrate on this case. First of all, a person whose reportedly innovative methods of treating went viral all over the Soviet Union in the moment of collapse of one of the biggest then countries in the world, has been laying low for several decades. However, 3 decades later, in the unprecedented time of global pandemic, between the social, his services happened to meet a substantial demand. I could definitely see a correlation between the social, political, and economic environments and the spread of popularity of vernacular health belief systems. Secondly, Kashpirovsky became a voice for expressing a number of social anxieties regarding mistrust to the official media sources, healthcare systems in the post-Soviet countries and communities, vaccines and mass vaccinations. He also brings up not so long forgotten tensions about Russia and the West. And finally, the very persona of Anatoly Kashpirovsky managed to combine the two features that make him appealing and trustworthy by people with a range of views regarding healthcare and vernacular healing traditions. On one hand, he is a classically trained professional physician with more than 25 years of experience. And on the other hand, he embodies features of a charismatic leader and a folk healer, at least in the eyes of his patients. So, like I said, I conducted my field work digitally during the lockdown in 2020. The main source for my research was his YouTube channel, Anatoly Kashpirovsky, where starting in March 2020, he has been broadcasting live healing sessions. I used people's comments that they left in a live chat, as well as comments under the video from those who watched the recording later. I also used personal memoirs of my family members and friends in Ukraine. In addition, I often refer to his official website, www.kashpirovsky.com, where he offers a plethora of video materials, newspaper articles, and interviews, information about and links to his 19 books that Kashpirovsky himself categorizes as scientific research and fiction. And also the statistics of miracles offered on the website and responses from his patients. Unfortunately, my attempt to reach Kashpirovsky via email address was not successful. In terms of theoretical framework, I'll be using experiential source hypothesis offered by folklorist David Hufford, as well as relying on Bonnie O'Connor's study of alternative medicine and Diane Goldstein's research on AIDS and vernacular risk perception. So to provide some historical context, so we need that to understand who Anatoly Kashpirovsky is and why he became popular in 2020. So in late 1980s, late 1980s were marked by a number of events in the USSR. In 1986, the Chernobyl nuclear reactor exploded, becoming one of the most devastating environmental catastrophes in the history. Mass dissatisfaction with the state policy was growing, leading to Gorbachev's perestroika, political movement, and a glasnost, an attempt to introduce freedom of speech and access to public information in the USSR. Religion had been proclaimed the opium of the people and banned for decades. In 1991, the USSR collapsed, leaving a huge chaotic ruin. And here is how a historian of mass media, Simon Huxtable, describes this particular time period and links it to a popularity of the phenomenon of Anatoly Kashpirovsky. The 1980s were a period when the predictability and certainty of the Soviet regime disappeared. Kashpirovsky's healing practices created a liminal space that perfectly captures the otherworldliness of the period. Unquote. So Anatoly Kashpirovsky was born in my home city Khmelnytsky, and it was another reason why I wanted to do this research. It was interesting and exciting. And he graduated from Vinnytsia Medical Institute with a degree in psychotherapy and worked at a psychiatric hospital for 25 years. During his medical practice, he claimed to develop innovative methods of treating illnesses, but not only those connected to mental health, but literally any disease. In 1988, Kashpirovsky held his first Kiev Moscow Telebridge when a tumor removal surgery was conducted without anesthesia. The patient had breast cancer. And by talking to the patient through the live broadcast on a camera installed in the operation room, he allegedly made her forget about any pain. Soon after that, in 1989, the second Kiev-Tbilisi Telebridge took place, and the success of this experience was mind-blowing. And here I want to show you a short video of this Telebridge. So let me share my screen again. So the video is in Russian, and it provides the footage of that broadcast of the Telebridge. So please.
Так, девочки, на вас, считай, смотрят миллионы.
Отлично, да.
Анатолий Михайлович, все, ну мы теперь, мы видим, как вы целуетесь, и я думаю, что у нас тоже сейчас прозвучат аплодисменты.
Для Анатолия Кашпировского это была и та самая минута славы, и главное испытание. Он сам в Киеве, 2 испуганных пациентки в Тбилиси.
Вы же знаете, какая я трусиха.
Значит, ты...
Николаевич, миленький, где ваши глаза?
А вот мои глаза.
Okay. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. So, however, some years later, this patient in the interview to RIA Novosti confessed that she actually was in a lot of pain, but pretended to be fine because of the pressure of the situation and all the cameras around her, and the doctors eventually had to give her local anesthesia. But of course, this information was not public at the time. And very soon, 6 health sessions with Dr. Kashpirovsky were broadcast on the central television in Moscow. And he would tour a lot in the USSR and even abroad and gather packed stadiums. Soon after that, he was elected to be a member of parliament in the Russian Gosduma. But soon after, he went into oblivion for reasons that were not publicly discussed, and he immigrated to the United States. And here we are in 2020, and I see Kashpirovsky healing COVID-19 online via the same medium through the screen, but this time via his own YouTube channel, as opposed to TV. So here I also have a short video to share. So this is his recent video from 2020, when he talks about his what he's doing now. So let me share my screen again.
Но главное, я сказал, сижу перед вами, автор чудес многих. А ну откройте на моем сайте страницу «Статистика чудес», сколько там необычных есть сообщений, документированных, не просто так. Поэтому я сижу здесь с полной уверенностью, что достаточно одного моего вида, чтобы так было.
Yes, so essentially he says that it is enough to only look at him to experience the miracles that he's referring to, and that his website has the statistics of documented miracles of healing people from different diseases. Folklorist Maria Lassiv claims that in Eastern Europe, due to the long history of the pre-existing favorable reputation of this supernatural healing practices, they are widely recognized by a larger society. In some venues, the supernatural had become a leading vehicle for communicating modernity, progress, and power, as understood at the vernacular level today. This tendency of combining vernacular and institutional medicine and seeing this combination in approaches to healing as progressive are very well demonstrated by the Kashpirovsky's case. So here I wanted to show you some responses of Kashpirovsky's COVID-19 patients from his YouTube channel. All the comments are translated from Russian. The stylistics of the comments are preserved. Also, I hid the names, location, and age of the people to protect their identity. So as we can see, these comments offer a rather wide spectrum of responses. Some people express gratitude for the help that they received previously, sharing personal updates from their health improvements, like my eyesight got better, physical changes, my face looks younger, my lips are bigger, and habitual changes like I eat much less now. The majority of comments are related to coronavirus, but they also vary from joyful updates about improvements. For instance, I can smell my perfume now, hooray, to the words of despair, stating that Kashpirovsky is their last hope to provide medical help. For instance, doctors cannot help me, please help me. Just like the perestroika period in the USSR, the global pandemic in 2020 happened to be an unprecedented time of instability and despair affecting larger populations. Folklorist Bonnie O'Connor argues that whenever there is a danger and uncertainty, great incidence of chance and anxiety, a proliferation of logistical and technological responses crops up. Anatoly Kashpirovsky taps a number of social anxieties during his earlier and current sessions, including those regarding COVID-19. On the one hand, he criticizes the Russian government and medical systems for their inability to meet the needs of the population. In the spirit of Cold War, he also expresses mistrust to the American, he says, or another phrase he uses, Anglo-Saxon vaccines, claiming that the West is trying to quote, destroy and bring Russia, the biggest and the richest country, to extinction, end quote. Folklorist Diane Goldstein provides a number of legends expressing the feeling that people had about AIDS, having been created in a laboratory at a military institution devoted to biological warfare in Maryland, USA, Haiti, or such older enemies as Russia or Germany. Despite the fact that he is always very vocal about his standing as a health professional, the pattern of religious elements in people's responses to Kashpirovsky's practices is revealing their attitude towards him as a folk healer. In her article, Olga Gradinaru suggests that the phenomenon of Kashpirovsky can be explained by the long history of the existence of witch doctors or znachari or healers in Slavic culture. The post-Soviet phenomenon of witch doctors may be considered a form of a wide spiritual movement of neo-paganism or neo-shamanism, overlapping on the existing Slavic and Siberian cultural matrices and paradigms. We should also add that the popularity of such vernacular responses and acceptance of alternative healing methods in the post-Soviet communities should not be viewed as instances of cultural evolutionism. Neither should be pathologized or romanticized as well. Bonnie O'Connor, for instance, states that vernacular health belief systems have become appealing to college-educated middle class who are members of a multiplicity of health belief systems that comprise the New Age healing movement. In conclusion, during the pandemic of COVID-19, the government's official media sources and conventional medicine failed to provide a necessary level of support to populations globally. As a result, people started seeking comfort and answers to their multiple questions elsewhere. This is when alternative methods of healing became the only way of coping with fear and anxiety regarding the new virus. Anatoly Kashpirovsky, a professional psychotherapist, a healer, a charismatic leader, and a scandalous figure from the 1980s and 90s, came back to meet the current need of a society. Like 30 years ago, he provides his healing sessions via the same media, video connection, but this time through his YouTube channel. Despite the fact that his healing methods were questioned by many, and despite his almost 30-year-long oblivion, his services during the pandemic of 2020 were recycled and presented as a long forgotten and still effective, moreover progressive. Kashpirovsky has managed to combine features of a professional physician and a folk healer, which without any doubt widened his audiences and catered to the needs of many. He also entertained ideas of conspiracy theories regarding the origin and the spread of his new virus, implying that the West is aiming to ruin Russia and bring its nation to extinction. His patients, who are both citizens of the post-Soviet republics and immigrants living mostly in Europe and North America, find this opinion especially appealing and trustable, hence expressed by Anatoly Kashpirovsky. So that's all I have. Thank you very much for listening, and I will be happy to take questions and comments.